Admiral Vexthar stood in the command center of the Imperial Dreadnought Sovereign's Wrath, his 4 eyes gleaming with satisfaction as he watched the primitive human vessel burn in the void. The pathetic ship had offered no real resistance. Its crude weapons barely scratched the energy shields of his mighty fleet. Within minutes, the human craft was disabled, its crew captured. "Bring me their leader," Vexthar commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered dozens of worlds for the Galactic Empire. His scaled hands drummed against the command console as he anticipated another easy victory to add to his collection. The blast doors hissed open, and 2 Karathi guards dragged in a figure that made Vexthar pause. He had expected some young, defiant warrior or perhaps a cowering diplomat. Instead, they brought him an old human male, his hair silver-white and his face lined with age. The human wore a simple jumpsuit marked with strange symbols that meant nothing to the admiral. "This is their captain?" Vexthar asked, unable to hide his amusement. "The humans send children and elderly to fight their battles?" The old human straightened despite his restraints, meeting Vexthar's gaze without flinching. His eyes held a calm that unsettled the admiral, though he would never admit it. "I am Captain Marcus Chen of the exploration vessel Horizon's Edge," the human said quietly. "And you have just made the biggest mistake of your very long life." Laughter erupted throughout the command center. Even the usually disciplined Karathi guards allowed themselves smirks. Vexthar's officers exchanged glances, wondering if the old human had suffered brain damage during the capture. "Mistake?" Vexthar leaned forward, his massive frame towering over the human. "Old one, do you see this ship? Do you comprehend the power of the Galactic Empire? We have crushed civilizations that span star systems. We have turned entire species into slaves or dust. Your little Earth sends exploration ships with crews of 30, while we command fleets of 10,000 vessels." Captain Chen remained silent, his weathered hands clasped behind his back despite the energy restraints. This only amused Vexthar more. "Tell me, ancient human, what exactly is this terrible mistake we have made? Did we damage your precious cargo of scientific instruments? Did we interrupt your peaceful mission to catalog space flowers?" The bridge crew laughed again, but Chen's expression never changed. When the laughter died down, he spoke with the same quiet tone. "You attacked an Earth vessel without provocation. You destroyed a ship engaged in peaceful exploration. And now you hold prisoners of the Seoul Defense Force." "Seoul Defense Force?" Vexthar practically howled with amusement. "Is that what you call your tiny collection of exploration ships? How many vessels does this mighty force possess? 50? 100? "Admiral," interrupted his communications officer, a tall Zalani with violet skin. "We're receiving multiple transmissions from the human ship's emergency beacon before we destroyed it. Should we jam the signals?" Vexthar waved dismissively. "Let them send their distress calls. Let all of Earth know what happened here. Fear will make them surrender faster when we arrive to claim their world." Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. "You intend to invade Earth?" "Intend?" Vexthar stood to his full 8-foot height. "Old man, invasion suggests resistance is possible. We will simply take your planet like we have taken hundreds of others. Your species will serve the Empire as laborers, just like the Kthari, the mollusk folk of Centauri, and the crystal singers of the Veil Nebula." "The Kthari," Chen repeated slowly. "You enslaved the Kthari?" 300 years ago. Magnificent warriors, but they learned to kneel before imperial might. Just as your humans will." For the first time, something shifted in Chen's expression. The calm remained, but underneath it, Vexthar glimpsed something that made his scales ripple with unease. "Admiral," Chen said, his voice still quiet but carrying a new weight. "How long has it been since the Empire encountered serious resistance?" "Serious resistance?" Vexthar laughed, but not as loudly as before. "The last species foolish enough to truly resist us was wiped out 6 centuries ago. The demons of Krell fought to the last, and where are they now? Nothing but radioactive ash drifting in dead space. 6 centuries of easy conquests," Chen mused. 6 centuries of weaker species surrendering or being crushed quickly. Admiral, when did your people last face an enemy that fought back with everything they had? What does it matter, human? Strength is strength. Our fleets number in the millions. Our weapons can crack planets. Our armies have never known defeat. Chen was quiet for a long moment, studying the alien faces around him. When he spoke again, his words were measured and deliberate. Admiral Vexthar of the Galactic Empire, I am not just Captain Marcus Chen of the exploration vessel Horizon's Edge. I am Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen, retired, former Supreme Commander of Human Space Forces, veteran of the Proxima Wars, the Battle of the Burning Nebula, and The Last Stand at Titan. I commanded fleets when your empire was still learning to fly between stars. The laughter on the bridge died completely. Vexthar's 4 eyes focused intently on the human. Impossible. You said you were from an exploration ship. I was. In retirement, I took command of scientific missions. It was supposed to be peaceful work. Chen's voice grew colder. I have spent the last 20 years of my life trying to forget what I learned about war. About what humans can become when they have no choice but to fight. Threats from a prisoner, Vexthar scoffed, but his voice lacked conviction. Not threats. History. Chen stepped closer despite his restraints. Admiral, your empire has grown soft. For 6 centuries, you have fought farmers and merchants and peaceful civilizations. You have forgotten what happens when you corner a predator. Predator? Vexthar's scales flared with indignation. Human, look around you. We are the apex predators of this galaxy. Are you? Chen asked quietly. Tell me, Admiral, what is your species' natural role on your homeworld? Herbivore? Omnivore? We are omnivores, consuming both vegetation and smaller creatures. And humans? Chen smiled for the first time, but it was not a pleasant expression. We are persistence hunters, Admiral. On our world, we chased mammoth across frozen continents until they collapsed from exhaustion. We followed prey for days without rest. When something threatened our families, we did not just fight back. We hunted it across continents and oceans until nothing remained. The bridge had grown eerily quiet. Even the humming of machinery seemed muffled. You see, Chen continued, your empire made one critical error in your intelligence gathering. You observed our exploration fleets and our peaceful colonies. You saw our small ships and our simple weapons. But you never asked the right question. What question? Vexthar found himself asking despite his better judgment. Where are humanity's warships? The question hung in the air like a physical presence. Vexthar's tactical officer began frantically checking sensor readings. Our scouts reported no significant military presence around Earth, Vexthar said, but doubt crept into his voice. Of course they didn't. Chen's smile widened. Would you keep your weapons where enemies could count them? You're bluffing, Vexthar declared, but he was already moving toward his command console. Tactical, run deep scans on the human's homeworld again. Sir, our long-range sensors show the same readings as before. Small orbital stations, civilian traffic, some defensive platforms. Nothing that could threaten even a single Imperial cruiser. Chen laughed, and the sound sent chills through the assembled aliens. It was not the laughter of fear or madness. It was the laughter of someone who knew a secret that would soon be revealed. Admiral, he said, let me tell you what your sensors cannot see. Hidden in the asteroid belts and dead moons of our system, behind stealth fields your technology cannot penetrate, are the fleets that conquered the Proxima Centauri system. The ships that broke the Tau Ceti alliance. The weapons that turned the moons of Jupiter into fortress worlds. Impossible. No species could hide fleets of that magnitude. We learned from the best teachers in the galaxy, Chen replied. We learned from our mistakes. Every war we fought, every enemy we faced, taught us new lessons about survival. And the greatest lesson of all was this: never let your true strength be seen until the moment you need it. Vexthar was about to respond when alarms began blaring throughout the command center. His communications officer looked up from her console in shock. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from Earth. Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, revealing the bridge of a starship unlike anything in the Imperial fleet. The design was sleek and predatory, with weapons systems that Vexthar's experienced eye recognized as far advanced from the crude arms of the exploration vessel. A human female appeared on screen, her uniform bearing insignia that spoke of high rank. Her expression was cold fury barely held in check. "This is Admiral Sarah Mackenzie of the Seoul Defense Force. You are holding one of our people prisoner. You have attacked a peaceful exploration vessel. You have committed an act of war against humanity." Vexthar stepped forward, his composure returning. "I am Admiral Vexthar of the Imperial Navy. Your people will surrender immediately, or we will take Earth by force." "Admiral Vexthar," Mackenzie replied, her voice carrying deadly calm, "you have 30 minutes to release Captain Chen and withdraw from human space. Refuse, and you will learn why the galaxy learned to fear Earth." "Fear Earth?" Vexthar laughed. "Woman, you command a few dozen ships at most. We have a fleet of 10,000 vessels." Mackenzie smiled, and Vexthar felt his blood run cold. It was the same smile Chen had worn moments before. "Admiral," she said, "you're looking at one ship. Would you like to see the rest?" The screen split, showing view after view of massive human warships. Dreadnoughts that dwarfed Vexthar's own vessel. Carriers bristling with fighter craft. Destroyer squadrons moving in perfect formation. The displays kept coming, showing fleets beyond counting emerging from hidden positions throughout the solar system. "Impossible," Vexthar whispered. "Our intelligence was what we wanted you to see," Chen said from behind him. "Admiral, humanity has been preparing for this day for 3 centuries. Every species the Empire conquered taught us something new about your tactics, your technology, your weaknesses. We studied you the way predators study their prey." On screen, Admiral Mackenzie continued her transmission. "You have 29 minutes remaining. I suggest you use them wisely." The communication cut out, leaving Vexthar staring at tactical displays that showed thousands of human vessels surrounding his fleet. Ships that had appeared from nowhere, using technology that should not exist. "Sir," his tactical officer called out in a shaking voice, "we're completely surrounded. Our exit vectors are blocked." "How many ships?" Vexthar demanded. "I'm counting at least 50,000 vessels, sir. And more are still appearing." Vexthar turned back to Chen, his earlier confidence completely shattered. "This is impossible. No species has ever hidden fleets of this magnitude. No species has ever had 300 years to prepare for the Empire's arrival," Chen replied. "No species has ever learned from watching you conquer dozens of worlds. And no species has ever been as patient as humanity when planning their revenge." "Revenge? What revenge? We have never encountered humans before today." Chen's expression grew hard. "The Kthari were our allies, Admiral. The Crystal Singers traded with our outer colonies for generations. The mollusk folk taught our children their songs. Every species your empire enslaved or destroyed had friends among humanity. And we never forget our friends." The weight of his words settled over the bridge like a crushing presence. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Vexthar began to understand that he had not captured a helpless old explorer. He had walked into a trap 3 centuries in the making. "What do you want?" he asked finally. Chen looked around the bridge at the assembled aliens, all of whom now watched him with expressions of fear and respect. "You asked me what mistake you had made, Admiral. You attacked an Earth vessel without provocation. You threatened to enslave my species. You mocked an old human who had spent 20 years trying to forget the lessons of war." Chen's voice grew quiet again, but now it carried the authority of someone who had commanded the death of worlds. "You want war, Admiral? Then, we'll give you war." The Imperial Council chamber on the capital world of Zirian Prime had seen the fall of empires and the birth of new ages, but never had its ancient walls witnessed such chaos. Emergency sessions were called at all hours as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The humans, dismissed as a primitive species barely worth cataloging, had struck with devastating precision at 17 Imperial fleets simultaneously. Executor Thane, supreme ruler of the Galactic Empire, stood before the massive holographic display that showed their territorial holdings. Red markers indicated lost fleets, severed communication lines, and worlds under human assault. In just 3 days, the Empire had lost more vessels than in the previous century of expansion. How? Thane demanded, his voice echoing through the chamber. How does a species with primitive exploration ships suddenly field armadas that dwarf our own? Intelligence Director Croth, a spider-like being with multiple eyes that never stopped moving, scuttled forward with his report. Executor, our analysis suggests the humans have been planning this assault for several generations. They allowed us to observe only their civilian infrastructure while hiding their true military capabilities. Hiding where? Our deep space surveillance covers every system within 1,000 light-years of Earth. That's just it, Executor. They weren't hiding in distant systems. Our long-range sensors detected the human fleets emerging from asteroid fields, planetary rings, and even holomoons within their own solar system. They've been there all along, using stealth technology we didn't know existed. Fleet Marshal Zorg, a veteran of 100 campaigns, stepped forward. His usually confident demeanor was shaken. Executor, I've reviewed the tactical reports from our surviving commanders. The human vessels use weapons systems unlike anything in our databases. Their energy shields absorb our plasma cannons completely, while their missiles seem to phase through our defensive screens. Are you telling me that a species we classified as technologically inferior has somehow developed superior military technology? Not developed, Executor. Adapted. Croth projected a series of technical readouts. Our analysts believe the humans have been studying captured Imperial technology for centuries. Every species we conquered, every ship we destroyed, left debris and data that somehow reached Earth. They learned from our victories and our victims' defeats. Executor Thane studied the readouts with growing unease. The human weapon signatures showed clear influences from dozens of conquered species. Energy patterns from the Crystal Singers, shield harmonics from the Kthari, missile guidance systems from the mollusk folk. They've been learning from our conquests, he said slowly. Building weapons specifically designed to counter our systems. That's our assessment, yes sir. But there's more. Croft highlighted another section of data. The humans aren't just using superior technology. Their tactical formations show a level of coordination we've never encountered. They fight like they know exactly what we're going to do before we do it. Fleet Marshal Zorg nodded grimly. Every engagement follows the same pattern. Our commanders deploy standard Imperial tactics, and the humans counter perfectly. It's as if they've studied every battle we've ever fought. How is that possible? Because they have, came a new voice from the chamber entrance. The assembled leaders turned to see Admiral Vexthar entering, flanked by guards. He had been stripped of rank and was awaiting trial for his catastrophic encounter with the humans, but Executor Thane had ordered him brought to the council for his first-hand knowledge. You were not given permission to speak, Thane growled. With respect, Executor, I'm the only being in this chamber who has spoken directly with their leadership. The human I captured, Marcus Chen, told me something that we all need to understand. What did this human tell you? Vexthar approached the holographic display, his movements careful under the watchful eyes of his guards. He said that humanity has been watching us for 3 centuries. Every species we conquered had allies, trading partners, observers among the humans. They've been collecting data on our tactics, our technology, our weaknesses since before most of us were born. Impossible. Our intelligence networks would have detected such observation. Would they? Vexthar activated a section of the display, showing star charts of Imperial expansion over the past 300 years. Look at the pattern, Executor. Every species we conquered had some contact with Earth's outer colonies or trading posts. The humans never interfered directly, never offered military aid. They just watched and learned. Intelligence Director Crotha's multiple eyes widened as he processed the implications. They let us conquer their allies to study our methods. More than that, Vexthar continued. They let us grow confident. They let us believe we were the apex predators of this galaxy while they planned our destruction. Chen called it persistence hunting. They don't just fight their prey. They study it, exhaust it, and, then, strike when it's most vulnerable. Executor Thane was quiet for a long moment, studying the tactical displays. When he spoke, his voice carried a cold fury that made even veteran warriors step back. How many fleets do we estimate they possess? Fleet Marshal Zord consulted his datapad. Conservative estimates put their total strength at over 100,000 vessels. But, Executor, that's just what we've observed. Their stealth capabilities suggest the actual number could be much higher. 100,000 ships, Thane repeated. Built in secret over 3 centuries, specifically designed to destroy us. There's something else, Croth added hesitantly. Our communication intercepts suggest they're not fighting alone. We're receiving reports of Kthari resistance cells attacking Imperial installations. Crystal Singer fleets emerging from the dead zones where we thought we'd exterminated them. Even some mollusk folk have begun using their trade networks to supply human forces. The species we conquered are rising again? The humans are calling it the Liberation Front. They've been secretly supporting resistance movements across our territory for decades, waiting for the right moment to coordinate a galaxy-wide uprising. Executor Thane turned back to Vexthar. What else did this Chen tell you? He asked me how long it had been since the Empire faced serious resistance. 6 centuries, I told him. He said that was our weakness. We've grown soft fighting farmers and merchants. We've forgotten what happens when predators are cornered. And, what happens, according to this human? Vexthar met the executor's gaze directly. They don't just fight back. They hunt their enemies to extinction. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of the holographic displays. The red markers continued to multiply as more reports arrived from the frontier. Options, Thane demanded. Fleet Marshal Zord stepped forward. We could withdraw our border fleets to core systems and establish a defensive perimeter around our most vital worlds. That would abandon a third of our territory. Better than losing our entire fleet structure, sir. The humans are picking apart our scattered forces. If we consolidate our strength. They'll just wait, Vexthar interrupted. That's what persistence hunters do. They follow their prey until it collapses from exhaustion. The humans have waited 3 centuries for this moment. They can wait 3 more if necessary. Then, what do you suggest? Thane's voice carried dangerous undertones. We negotiate. The words hit the chamber like a physical blow. Several council members began speaking at once, their voices rising in outrage. The Galactic Empire did not negotiate with inferior species. The Empire took what it wanted and crushed any resistance. Negotiate? Thane's voice cut through the chaos. With humans? Executor, we're not fighting an inferior species. We're fighting an empire that's been specifically designed to destroy us. They've had 300 years to study our every move, to build weapons we can't counter, to forge alliances with our enemies. This isn't a war we can win through superior firepower. Are you suggesting the mighty Galactic Empire surrender to a collection of primitive mammals? Vexthar straightened despite his restraints. I'm suggesting that we're facing an enemy that knows us better than we know ourselves. An enemy that's already demonstrated they can destroy our fleets at will. An enemy that's managed to coordinate rebellion across dozens of star systems simultaneously. They're still just humans, Fleet Marshal Zord protested. Individually, they're weaker than most Imperial species. Their lifespans are shorter, their physical capabilities limited. Individually, yes, Vexthar agreed. But, they don't fight as individuals. They fight as a unified force with a single purpose. And, that purpose is our complete destruction. On cue, alarms began blaring throughout the council chamber. Intelligence Director Croth received an urgent transmission and his expression grew pale. Executor, he announced, the human fleet has arrived in the Zirian system. Impossible. This system is defended by the home fleet. 30,000 vessels protect this world. The home fleet is engaging now, sir. But. Croth paused, studying his readouts. The humans appear to have brought everything. The chamber's main display shifted to show the space around Zirian Prime. The view was overwhelming. Human vessels filled the sensor grid in numbers that defied comprehension. Dreadnoughts the size of moons moved in perfect formation alongside carrier groups that launched fighter squadrons by the thousands. How many ships? Thane whispered. Preliminary scans suggest over 500,000 vessels, Executor. The entire human fleet appears to be here. But, why? Why bring such overwhelming force to one system? Vexthar answered quietly. Because they're not here to conquer, Executor. They're here to send a message. What message? That nowhere in the galaxy is safe from human reach. That no Imperial stronghold is beyond their ability to destroy. They want us to understand that this isn't just a war. It's a demonstration. As if summoned by his words, the communication system activated. The central display showed the bridge of a human vessel unlike anything they had seen before. The design was elegant and deadly, incorporating elements from dozens of species but unified by a distinctly human aesthetic. A human male appeared on screen, elderly but carrying himself with unmistakable authority. His uniform bore more decorations than any Imperial admiral, and his eyes held the cold calculation of someone who had commanded the death of worlds. This is Fleet Admiral Harrison Cole of the Sol Defense Force. I am addressing the Galactic Empire's leadership directly. Executor Thane stepped forward. I am Executor Thane, Supreme Ruler of the Galactic Empire. You will withdraw your fleets immediately and surrender unconditionally, or we will destroy every human world in this galaxy. Admiral Cole's expression didn't change. Executor Thane, your threats are empty. Your home fleet is already withdrawing from Zirian system. Your border defenses have collapsed. Your allied species are in open revolt. The Galactic Empire, as it has existed for millennia, is finished. You dare threaten the capital world itself? I'm not threatening anything, Executor. I'm explaining reality. Cole's image was replaced by tactical displays showing the destruction of Imperial fleet after Imperial fleet. In 72 hours, humanity has crippled your military, liberated 17 enslaved species, and demonstrated that your empire exists only because we have allowed it to exist. What do you want? The same thing we've wanted for 300 years. Justice for our friends. Freedom for the enslaved. And an end to the Empire's expansion across the galaxy. Executor Thane's forearms trembled with rage. And, if we refuse? Admiral Cole reappeared on screen, and, for the first time, he smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Then, you'll learn what Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen meant when he told your Admiral Vexthar that humanity would give you the war you wanted. But, understand this, Executor. This demonstration represents less than 10% of humanity's total military strength. The rest remains hidden, waiting to see how you respond to our offer. The transmission cut out, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. 500,000 human vessels waited outside their homeworld, and their admiral claimed it was just a small portion of their true fleet. Options? Thane asked again, his voice barely a whisper. This time, no one answered. The Galactic Empire, supreme power of the galaxy for over 1,000 years, sat paralyzed in its own capital system, surrounded by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive just days before. An enemy that had spent 3 centuries planning this exact moment. Outside the council chamber windows, the lights of human warships filled the night sky like new stars, each one a reminder that the galaxy's balance of power had shifted forever. 6 months had passed since the human demonstration at Zirian Prime, and the galaxy was still reeling from the shock. The Galactic Empire, once the undisputed master of known space, now controlled less than half of its former territory. Species that had been enslaved for centuries walked free under human protection. Worlds that had trembled at the mention of Imperial might now hosted human diplomatic missions and liberation fleets. Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the observation deck of the human flagship Terra's Vengeance, watching the final battle of the war unfold in the space around Drakmar, the Empire's last major stronghold. The aged admiral had come out of retirement not to lead battles, but to witness the end of the empire that had enslaved his friends across the stars. Admiral, came the voice of Captain Sarah Mackenzie, who had taken command of the military operations while Chen served as overall strategic coordinator. The Imperial defenders are requesting terms for surrender. Chen nodded without taking his eyes off the battle display. Drakmar's defensive fleet, once numbering in the thousands, was down to fewer than 100 vessels. They had fought bravely, but courage meant nothing against an enemy that knew every tactic in their playbook. Put me through to their fleet commander. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Vexthar on the bridge of his damaged flagship. The Karathi officer who had once mocked a captured old human now looked aged beyond his years. His scaled face bore fresh scars from battle damage, and his eyes held the hollow look of someone who had watched an empire die. Admiral Chen, Vexthar said formally. I request terms for the surrender of the Drakmar defense fleet. Admiral Vexthar, Chen replied with equal formality. I accept your surrender. All Imperial vessels will power down weapons and prepare for boarding. Your crews will be treated according to the Galactic Accords. And the Empire? Chen was quiet for a moment, studying the alien who had started this war with an act of casual cruelty. The Empire, as it existed, is finished. Executor Thane died fighting at Zirion rather than accept defeat. The Imperial Council has been dissolved. What remains will be rebuilt under very different principles. Will you enslave us as we enslaved others? No, Admiral. Humanity doesn't build empires through conquest. We build them through alliance. Chen gestured to the tactical display, which showed not just human vessels but ships from dozens of liberated species fighting alongside them. Every species in this fleet chose to stand with us. The Crystal Singers sing their war hymns again. The Kthari warriors fight for their own freedom. The mollusk folks trade networks supply our coalition freely. Vexthar looked around his ruined bridge, then back at the screen. What will happen to those of us who serve the Empire? That depends on what you choose to do with your freedom. The Empire enslaved others, but it also enslaved its own people to an ideology of conquest. You can choose differently now. And if we choose to fight? If some of us cannot accept this new galaxy? Chen's expression grew cold. Then, you'll face the same fate as any who choose to oppress others. The difference is, now you know what humanity is capable of when we have no choice but to act. The transmission ended, and Chen turned to find Captain Mackenzie approaching with a status report. All Imperial fleets have surrendered or been destroyed, she reported. The Liberation Forces are securing the remaining Imperial worlds. Casualties among civilian populations have been minimal, thanks to the precision strikes we planned. And our own losses? Remarkably light. The intelligence we gathered over 3 centuries made this campaign almost surgical in its precision. We knew exactly where to strike and when. Chen nodded, but his expression remained thoughtful. Sarah, do you understand what we've become? Sir? 300 years ago, humanity was a single world with dreams of exploring the stars. We built exploration ships and research stations. We wanted to learn, to discover, to make friends among the species we found. Chen gestured toward the tactical displays showing the vast human fleet. Now we command the most powerful military force this galaxy has ever seen. Mackenzie considered his words carefully. With respect, Admiral, we became what we needed to become to protect ourselves and our friends. Did we? Or did we become something else entirely? Chen moved to another display showing the liberated worlds. Look at what we've built. The largest alliance in galactic history. Military technology that makes us nearly invincible. An intelligence network that spans thousands of star systems. Are you having second thoughts about what we've accomplished? Not second thoughts, but questions about what comes next. Chen turned to face his protege. For 3 centuries, we had a clear purpose. Stop the Empire. Free the enslaved species. Protect our friends. But what do we do with this power now that the Empire is gone? Before Mackenzie could answer, the communication system activated again. This time, it wasn't a surrender request. The image showed a familiar figure that made Chen smile for the first time in months. Admiral Chen, came the harmonious voice of Lyral Th, leader of the Crystal Singers. The Council of Liberated Worlds is prepared to convene on Harmony Station. We await humanity's representation. Thank you, Lyral Th. I'll be there shortly. The transmission ended, and Chen began moving toward the shuttle bay. Mackenzie fell into step beside him. Admiral, the council meeting. What will humanity propose? That's what I've been thinking about, Sarah. We've proven we can destroy empires. Now we need to prove we can build something better. The journey to Harmony Station took 3 days, during which Chen spent most of his time in private consultation with Earth's diplomatic corps and the leaders of humanity's various colonies. By the time his shuttle approached the massive space station built from the combined technologies of a dozen liberated species, he had made his decision. Harmony Station was itself a symbol of what the galaxy could become. Thari Engineering supported Crystal Singer artistic design. Mollusk folk biotechnology created living gardens that the former imperial slave species now tended as free beings. Humans had contributed the communications and coordination systems that allowed such diverse technologies to work together seamlessly. The council chamber was vast enough to accommodate representatives from 47 different species, each freed from imperial rule during the liberation campaign. Chen took his seat among them not as a conqueror, but as a representative of Earth and her colonies. Lyral Th, whose crystalline form caught and reflected light in patterns that conveyed emotion as much as her words, began the session. Fellow beings of the liberated galaxy, we gather to decide our future now that the Empire's reign has ended. The question before us is simple: what kind of galaxy do we choose to build? The discussion that followed lasted for hours. Some species wanted isolation, having suffered too much under imperial rule to trust any large organization. Others proposed a new empire with humanity at its head, recognizing the military power that had freed them. Still others suggested a loose confederation that would allow maximum autonomy while providing mutual defense. When Chen finally stood to speak, the chamber fell silent. Every being present knew that humanity's decision would shape whatever came next. Friends, he began, using the term deliberately. 300 years ago, my people made a choice. When we first encountered other species among the stars, we chose friendship over conquest. We chose to learn rather than to dominate. That choice led us down a long path that culminated in this war. He paused, looking around the chamber at faces from dozens of worlds. We could have acted sooner. We could have revealed our strength and challenged the Empire when we first developed the capability. But we waited, and that waiting cost lives. Species suffered under imperial rule while we prepared. So I want to make something clear: humanity will never again allow such suffering to continue while we have the power to stop it. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some delegates looked relieved, others concerned about what this promise might mean. However, Chen continued, we also learned something from our long wait. Power without restraint becomes tyranny. Military might without moral purpose becomes oppression. We refuse to replace one empire with another. He activated a holographic display showing a proposed structure that had taken human diplomats months to develop. We proposed the Galactic Federation of Free Worlds. Not an empire, but an alliance. Not a hierarchy, but a partnership. Every member species maintains complete autonomy over their internal affairs. No species may impose its will on another. But, when any member faces external threats or requests assistance, the Federation responds with the combined strength of all. The proposal was elegant in its simplicity. Military forces would remain under individual species control but could be coordinated for mutual defense. Trade would be regulated by agreements between species, not imperial decree. Disputes would be mediated by rotating councils rather than imposed by superior force. What about enforcement? Asked General Korvax of the Kthari. What prevents powerful members from dominating weaker ones? Chen smiled at the question. Humanity volunteers to serve as the Federation's military guarantors. Our fleets will ensure that no member species oppresses another. And we bind ourselves by the same restrictions we propose for everyone else. You would police yourselves? We would submit to the same oversight we ask of others. Human forces will be subject to Federation military courts. Human colonies will be open to Federation inspection. And, most importantly, humanity will never hold more than 1/7 of the seats on the Federation Council, regardless of our military contribution. The chamber buzzed with conversation as delegates processed the implications. Humanity was offering to use their overwhelming military advantage to protect others while voluntarily limiting their own political power. Lyral Th's crystalline form pulsed with colors that conveyed deep thoughtfulness. Admiral Chen, why would humanity accept such restrictions? Your people have the strength to rule this galaxy as absolute monarchs if you chose. Chen's expression grew serious. Because we've seen what absolute power does to those who hold it. The Empire started with noble goals too. They wanted to bring order to chaotic space, to end the wars between species, to create prosperity through unity. Look what they became. He gestured to the delegates around him. Every being in this chamber suffered under the Empire's benevolent rule. We will not repeat their mistakes. Power must be shared, limited, and constantly questioned. And if some of us refuse to join this federation, asked Ambassador Thylix of the former Imperial vassal worlds. Then, you remain free to govern yourselves as you see fit, Chen replied without hesitation. The Federation will not force membership on anyone. But, we will also not allow anyone to force subjugation on others. Choose your own path, but respect others' right to choose theirs. The vote, when it came, was unanimous among the liberated species. Even those who had initially opposed any large organization recognized the wisdom of Chen's proposal. The Galactic Federation of Free Worlds was born not through conquest, but through choice. As the ceremonies concluded and the delegates began planning their new shared future, Chen found himself back on the observation deck of his flagship, watching the mixed fleets of the Federation conducting joint exercises. Human vessels flew alongside Crystal Singer artships and Thari battlecruisers in formations that would have been impossible just a year before. Captain Mackenzie joined him at the viewport. So we went from explorers to warriors to peacekeepers in 3 centuries. What do you think humanity becomes next? Chen considered the question as he watched a group of young beings from different species working together on a joint engineering project in the station's public spaces. I think, he said finally, we become what we always were meant to be. Teachers. Protectors. Friends to any species that chooses friendship over conquest. And, if someone chooses conquest? Chen's reflection in the viewport showed the same calm determination that had once unsettled Admiral Vexthar in an Imperial prison cell. Then, they'll learn the same lesson the Empire learned. Humanity remembers its friends. And, we never forget those who threaten them. In the space around Harmony Station, the combined fleets of 47 species moved in perfect coordination, a symphony of cooperation conducted by the species that had once been dismissed as primitive explorers. The galaxy had indeed learned to fear Earth, but it had also learned to trust her. And, in that trust, a new age of freedom had been born. The old human who had once been mocked as helpless now stood as one of the architects of galactic liberation. The war he had promised was over. The peace he had made possible was just beginning.